that I want to talk about, and that's goals. This is the time of the year that all of us need to really take an inventory of what do we want our life to look like, a life by design. And one thing that I wrote down early on today, it was John 4:2, and James 4:2, and in the Bible it says, "You ask not, therefore you have not." And I think there's so much wisdom in that small yet powerful verse. It says, "You ask not, therefore you have not." And so this is a time that we need to start asking. This is a time that we need to start thinking about and writing down what we want our life to look like going through the year 2022. And for some of us, it's not just the short-term goal, but the long-term goal that we heard Alejandra talk about, 8 years in the making. What she's experiencing right now, she wrote down 8 years ago and literally designed a life that would allow her to have this accomplishment be able to happen before the team, before the leaders, before the RDs, before the ETLs. I mean, it was something that was written down before the success. And I want to start there because number one, look how far all of you come. Sometimes we don't take an opportunity to acknowledge where we are today. Look, you're in a business. You've made it to this far. You've got here. You've now adjusted to Zoom. We're the first generation in the history of the world ever to use this technology to build a business. We are the pioneers of this particular technology. And so number one, look at where you are. Meaning, look how far you've come. Sometimes we look at where we're not instead of where we are. Take a minute and just acknowledge the fact that you are not like everybody else, that on a Thursday night, you're in here working on you, becoming a better you, plotting and planning and strategizing while everybody else is getting ready for tomorrow night. You're getting ready for the rest of your life. See, they're looking forward to a happy hour. We're looking forward to a happy life. How many of us here would agree with what I just said? And so, when we talk about goals, a couple things I want you to think about is number one, it's going to take 90 days to start seeing results of whatever you decide to do today. It's going to take 90 days for things to show up, whether that's physical, whether that's financial, whether that's promotion, whatever it is that you're looking to have happen in the year 2022. It's going to take 90 days from today for it to show up. So I want you to have that mentality going into your goal setting strategy that 90 days from now is when you're going to start to see the results, where you're going to start to see the things that you want to have happen show up in your life. And so a couple of things that I think about. Number one, what do you want? Look, I love ACN because ACN has the ability to show me what the next goal was in the compensation plan. When people said, when I was brand new, what do you want? I want to become an executive team leader. And I started to speak it. I wrote it down. We talked about it. And then Mike and I became an executive team leader in ETL. And they said, what's the next goal? I want to become an RD. Okay, great. We talked about it. We planned, we plotted, we became obsessed with it. And we became regional directors. And so as you look at our compensation plan, the goals are built into the compensation plan. The goals are already available for all of us to plug into and go to the very top. But I want to bring a couple things out. See, the goal is the compass. That's where you want to end up, but it's what you do every day to get you there. So number one, make sure you take the time to write down what it is you want. Now, I think there's a couple different areas that I look at. Is number one, I look at financial, and then I look at business, and then I look at physical, and then I look at spiritual, and I look at family. And these are all areas of our life that we want to take an inventory of where we are and what we want to do to intentionally have a better life in those areas moving into a new year. Now, there's power of written words. And let me tell you why I know that to be true is how many of us would agree if you're driving down the road and you're going 65 mile an hour and they say that there's a sign behind a big truck that says 45 mile an hour, but you can't see the sign because there's a truck in front of it, you get pulled over, do you still get a ticket? Absolutely. And you know why you get a ticket? Because it's written down. Even if you can't see it, it's written down. And so that's the power in the written word. That's something that I recommend everybody doing, is taking the time to write down what it is that you want, not only short term, but what you want long term. See, Alejandra's goal of being a top influence, that was a long-term goal. But a short-term goal for somebody here tonight might be 75 customer points. And why do I say 75 customer points? Because it unlocks the compensation plan to get paid through your entire 5 levels of business. So if you're taking notes, that's a short-term goal, 75 customer points. How many of us like to write off those short-term goals? How many of us like to put a little check next to, hey, I got my 75 customer points? See, these are the goals that all of us want to set out, the short term, but also the long term. Something else is, our national convention. You're going to hear talking about January 29th. How many of us agree that our environment has a lot to do with our success? That our environment has a lot to do with whether you're a champion or maybe somebody that's just middle of the pack. And what I look at is our national convention puts me in the environment around other people. And I want to make it a personal mission that every year I'm at a national convention, because who's pouring into you? Who's stretching you? Who's getting you to think bigger than what you're thinking right now? And if that's a goal to say, look, I'm going to be at our national convention, here's the other goal. How many people are you going to take with you? See, a short-term goal for you tonight might be, how many people am I going to have sitting next to me in Dallas, Texas? And you could write an outlandish goal like, I'm going to have 10 people. Or I'm going to have 6 legs of business, or I'm going to have 20 people. See, whatever you write down, you're working towards that goal. And I love it's a short-term goal because it's the 29th day of January. So we know that between now and the 29th day, you can be sitting in that audience, taking out your goal list and writing a check next to it. Number 1, I made it to the event. Check. Number 2, I brought the 6 people I said I was going to bring, or the 5 people, or the 3 people, or the 2 people, or the 20 people. See, that's a business goal. That's what's going to advance your business, because how many of us would agree we want more people to be in a winning environment? See, they're not going to sit at home and win. Nobody's sitting at home inspired to go do great things. It's when they get in the environment of other champions. See, your environment influences your mindset. It influences what you think is possible based on the environment that you're in. See, the other thing might be, I'm going to have a Zoom a week. I might be part-time in ACN, and I'm going to write down, I'm going to do a Zoom every 7 days, that I will do a Zoom every 7 days. See, that forces you to have to show up in your business every week. It forces you for 6 days, you've got to start inviting. For 6 days, you've got to start calling people up and inviting them to come take a look at your business presentation. See, these are all the short-term goals, the things that you could do to accomplish the long-term goal. See, my long-term goal was to retire my parents. Mike and I sat down and we said, look, we want to make enough money not only to pay our bills, we want to make enough money to pay our parents' bills. But we also knew that we didn't have a lifetime to do it. My parents weren't young, that we had to actually move quickly, that we had to do things faster than normal, because I didn't want to wait 10, 15, 20 years to make that goal happen. So when you look at that long-term goal, that long-term goal might be a 3 to 5 year goal. It might be senior vice president in 5 years. It might be regional vice president in 3 years. It might be regional vice president in 24 months. Understand that all of those goals you have as a compass to say, here's what I want to do. But here's the second thing. With your goals, you have to have your reason why behind the goal. See, it's not one thing to say regional vice president. Why do you want to be a regional vice president? See, for us, it was retire our parents. That was our goal. We knew we couldn't do it unless we hit a pinnacle position in ACN that gave us the financial resources, not only to take care of ourselves, but to take care of people that we loved. And so again, that's the compass. That's where you want to go. Now, how do you get there? See, I believe you get there by having habits that you create, habits and disciplines that you bring into your life. What we're doing here today is a habit. For me, you heard some of the leaders say, hey, Friday night leadership. Why? Because it's a habit. They've been doing Friday night leadership for weeks and months and years, and in some cases, decades, because they understood that this was exactly where they needed to be to advance their business. No different if you and I owned a McDonald's, guess what? We'd be putting 2 pickles on the bun, folks. Like, that's what you'd be doing. That's what you do if you own those businesses. So, one of the things that Jeff Street has done an incredible job of, and I want to acknowledge him on a couple levels. Number one, he wrote down every goal that he wanted to accomplish when he started ACN. Wrote down every goal. Sent Mike and me an email of every goal that he wanted to accomplish. And he had goals on there like, pay my $50,000 of credit card debt off. He had $50,000 in credit card debt, and he wrote that as a goal. I want to pay that off. I want to buy a new car. I want to take a vacation. I mean, he had, I mean, every goal that you could think of, he had written down. I mean, it was incredibly long, the list of things that he wanted to accomplish. And here's what I love about goals. They're free to write down. See, just let your mind wander of all the things that you'd love to see happen. But here's the thing that he did, which I want to acknowledge him for doing it. He sent them to somebody else. Does that make sense? How many of us agree that's a brave human being to go, here's my goals, and now I'm sending them to you. And I can remember like yesterday sitting in California, outside of Los Angeles, and Jeff and I went out to do an event, and him and Melissa were there. And Jeff was like, Patrick, you know, I've got one last thing to do today. And he called the credit card company and he made the final payment on a $50,000 worth of debt that he came into ACN with. That was his credit card debt, and he made the final payment sitting in front of me at his kitchen table, and he took out his goal list and he crossed that goal off. Now, tell me there's not power in goals. Tell me there's not a magnetism that comes with writing it down and being excited about doing it. And one thing Jeff has really mastered, and this is something where I think as a leadership call is something that we as an organization can do, and that is the 100 squares. Now, you've probably heard this training, and if you haven't, you know, they've got a YouTube channel. Jeff will talk a little bit about that, but you need to watch this training because this training will get you to that goal of regional director, get you to that goal of regional vice president, get you to that goal of senior vice president, because it gives you a measuring stick. Does that make sense? It gives you the ability to measure your progress when it comes to having success in ACN. And Jeff, thank you for all that you do. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the 100 squares and what you've been able to do using that to propel your business, but more importantly, giving that tool to people like us in the field that are embracing that exact same mindset to have success. So everybody, Platinum Regional Vice President Jeff Street, thanks again for your leadership.
Well, Patrick, thank you for your leadership, your mentoring, your coaching. What an amazing training on goal setting. I took out my 2021 goal list here earlier on today and was just going back through my goals for this year and, you know, checking off everything we hit, reevaluating some of the things we fell short on a little bit, and just a great time to go out and measure, monitor, and adjust. But interestingly enough, our number one goal that I wrote down at the beginning of the year was buy a new house in Dallas, Texas, buy a new house, move to Dallas, Texas, buy a new house there. And love the fact that I'm sitting right here in my home in Highland Village and having you be a mile from me, man. It's been awesome. So excited. But yeah, one of the things that Patrick taught me, you know, 16 years ago, he said, you want to be a professional in this business, two things you really got to master. One is you got to go out and master personal growth and self-development, becoming the person that you want, that becoming the person that people want to follow. And I want to acknowledge each and every one of you for being on this call here tonight. This is personal growth. This is self-development. You told me ACN was a personal growth plan with a compensation plan attached to it. And as you become the person that you need to become, the results follow. That's why it's so exciting seeing Alejandra 9 years in, getting promoted to that top influencer position. She's become the person that people want to follow. So that's what you're doing here tonight, becoming that person that others want to follow, as well as, you know, obviously January 29th with the convention. But the second thing is personal recruiting. See, they said, be like the GM of a sports team. And who would agree in professional sports, you know, the GM is always looking to add talent to their roster. Does that make sense? The GM can only put the players on the field that they have on their roster. They're limited. You know, there's, you know, teams in the NFL this year that are, you know, this week that are down some quarterbacks based on COVID. You know, they were trying to recruit guys out of retirement because they didn't have the players on the roster that they needed to be able to put on the field, you know, this coming week. And so you have to have that mindset. I want to improve the quality of my team. And if it is to be, it's up to me, and I can wait for my team to do it, or I can go out and do it myself. And, you know, one of the things that they always told me that Mike said is, Jeff, the only way you can influence another person is by your own example. So I think the thing that most people struggle with when it comes to recruiting, that once people can change this little, you know, piece, you know, psychologically, it's over. You can go out and go all the way in this business. The only reason why people don't become amazing recruiters is they let their emotions get in the way. Who would agree with that? It's people's personal emotions that get the best of them. You know, they get too caught up in who they think should do it, and too upset about who's not going to do it, and too excited about people that do it, and too upset about people that don't do it. And Pat said, Jeff, you got to detach the emotions from the yeses and the nos. And I think conceptually everybody agree that's just logical. Like, who would agree? Any sort of recruiting, it's a numbers game, right? So you got to understand detaching the emotions from the yeses and the nos. And I think that's common sense for everybody. But at the same time, it can be hard to do. Because as you're going through those no's, sometimes those no's can get to you. So an exercise that I learned years ago that forever changed my business was something that Patrick talked about called the 100 squares. So this is actually my current 100 square grid. I just took off my wall to be able to share a few minutes of information with you guys. And as Patrick mentioned, Melissa and I have a YouTube channel. It's called Street Talk, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a lot of amazing ACN trainings on it. One of them that Patrick talked about is the 100 squares training. So I'm giving you the abbreviated version of it tonight, but here's the key to it. They said every time you personally show somebody the business, not your downline, you personally. Anytime one of your personal guests gets onto a presentation, their name goes onto a square. Their name, the date that they saw the business, what happened, they signed up, they became a customer, they said no, they said they want to think about it, they said follow up with me in 2 months, whatever the case may be. Every time you personally show somebody the business, their name goes onto a square. And he said, don't focus on the yeses and the nos, focus on the exposures. Your goal is to expose 100 people to business. And exposing 100 people to business, some are going to do it, some of them aren't going to do it, some are going to do a little, some aren't going to do much, some are going to do a medium amount, and some are going to become superstars. You just don't know where that's going to be. But if you just focus on the 100 exposures and let the rest take care of itself, the rest will take care of itself. And here's what they told me. They said, listen, if you go out and put 100 people in front of the business personally and follow up with people the right way, by the time you get to 100, they said, I bet you'll be a regional director. And here's what was amazing. Before I hit 100, I hit regional director. And I've been continuing to do these grids now for years and years and years. The current one, that I'm doing, guys, I have a lot of people I show the business to that say no to me. There's one spot, again, I put, like, if they sign up, if they become a customer, in the beginning, I had 6 of the first 16 say yes to me. So 6 of the first 16 joined the business. Then I had 26 people in a row that saw the presentation and didn't become a rep. And I've been doing this for 16 years. I got tens of thousands of customers. Some people are like, oh, everybody you show it to probably gets involved. No, 26 people in a row said no after starting 6 from 16. But I detached the emotions of the yes and no's. It was like, all right, awesome. I get to write their name in my square. And there was a mindset shift from a no being bad to, oh, cool, I'm one more square closer to the person that I'm looking for. And that's what my mindset became. I'm one more square to the person that I'm looking for. And you know what? One of these squares, here, let me see where I can find it here. Actually, square number 10. Square number 10, Skylar Oliveira, was my ex-girlfriend's cousin, who I hadn't talked to in 11 years, who saw me do something on Facebook that reached out to me, who led me to Josh Shea and JJ Hallam and Lori Shea, that are all regional directors in my team today. It came from one square. Square number 60 was Mark Washam. Square number 60, 59 squares in, was Mark Washam, who has over 2,300 customers in his team in 6 months in ACN. Mark had 8 people join his ACN business just today. But there's a lot of other squares that I can think, oh yeah, this guy said he was going to sign up tomorrow, and he never called me back. This person, said that they were going to do it, but they didn't. This person signed up and quit. This person signed up and did a little, but I don't care, because it's all about those 100 squares. So that and the follow-up, the fortune and the follow-up. Patrick followed up with me for 5 years. For 5 years, I was a no. He wrote my name down on a square somewhere and said, do I have permission to follow up with you in another 90 days, Jeff, just to update you on my progress? And I always said yes. And he always kept track of it. He always followed up with me. And 5 years into him following up with me, that no became a yes. And we've been building this together for 16 years. I want to just recognize Freddie Damper, because we talked about this on our morning huddle call just 2 days ago, we talked about going back to the people that you've shown the business to. This is a great time of the year to go back to people and follow up. And I said to everybody, here's what to say. And Freddie followed up with somebody who was on his first meeting that came back on a meeting last night and signed up on the spot, because longevity equals credibility. Some people in the beginning aren't going to do it because they're waiting to see, are you going to do it or are you going to quit? Literally, most people in life quit everything they do. Some people just want to see, what are you going to do? Are you going to take this serious? And, Freddie had a guy that got on last night at the end of it. He goes, man, I saw Freddie still doing this. He's doing well. He's hit some promotions. You know what? I'm in. Let's make this thing happen. Because again, longevity equals credibility. So guys, that's the abbreviated version of the 100 squares training, 100 exposures. I would make that a goal for yourself. That was a goal of mine this past year, was to expose another 100 people all over again, and personally sponsor at least 24 people myself all over again. So guys, Patrick, I'll turn it back to you. Hope that was helpful. And I just appreciate your leadership and your mentorship.
Man, it was super helpful. Light that chat up if what Jeff said gave you some great information. Let's let him know how much we appreciate him and his training here today. And now remember, this is 16 years of doing it. So he doesn't have a list like you that are here for your first 5 or 6 months. Can we agree? It wasn't like Jeff was going through his initial list of people. He had to go and create warm markets of people. He had to go out and make relationships with people. He had to go out and actually find people to sit in front to show the presentation to. And man, what a helpful training here. Because look, if your goal is to go RVP or regional director, that's the goal. That's the compass. Now, how are you going to get there? And I love the fact that Jeff takes the emotions out of the presentations, the emotions out of the business. It's about putting that name on that square and knowing that if you do 100, you're going to get to where you need to go in this opportunity. Now, look, we've been in ACN for 19, almost 20 years now, and ACN has done something here yesterday where they told us about a new position that they're bringing out starting in February of 2022. Now, this just shows you the DNA of this company, that they continue to enhance the opportunity, meaning they're putting more money in the compensation plan for every single one of us to go out and take advantage of. And what they said is there's a position between ETO and regional director, that if we can just create a position between ETO and regional director and pay those people more money and bridge the gap as they go from ETL to regional director. So this position is going to be implemented starting either February, if they can get it done, March at the latest. So I don't want you to February 1, they're trying to do a lot. There are 27 countries. When they do something, they have to build a software that can support 27 countries. But let me show you what this is going to look like, because I want you to put this down as part of your goals. And what I mean by that is now you have a goal. If you're an ETL here today, you want to position yourself in the next 30 to 60 days to hit this new position. And so just to give you an idea what that looks like, we don't have a name for it, so I don't want to tell you what the name is because we don't have a name, but this is the definition of the new position. Number one, you have to have 15 customer points. So that means personally, you have to have 16. Now remember, 7 points to go ETL personally, but 15 you're going to have personally to qualify for this new position. Now the position is a total of 200 customer points, and you have to have the most you can take out of one group is 100 points. So that means you can have max 100 points per leg, but you have to have a total of 200. Now, this position will immediately then allow for you to graduate on your way to what's called regional director, which is 600 customer points. Now, anybody that hits this new position, number one, they're going to pay you more money. So you're going to make more money as somebody comes in and gets qualified. You're going to be able to get paid over every executive team leader in your organization on your way to regional director. Now, I know that some of you got a chance to learn about this on the women's winning call last night. I had text messages. I woke up to 20 or 30 missed calls and text messages and people cannot sleep. But how many of you here today have already qualified for this position? Put your name in the chat. We'd love to recognize those of you that are already going to qualify for this position. JT, of course, look at that. Wow. Deborah, Peter, RG, brand new. He's going to qualify. Jimmy, absolutely. Steve, congrats. Felicia, already qualified. Jeff, Rebecca, wow, look at it. Already going to qualify. Once they turn the switch on, they're going to promote you. It's going to be an incredible opportunity for you to be able to bridge the gap to regional director. Regional director, we like to say, is a position where now you're in the game. Now you're able to go out and do some big things at this position. But this new position is going to pay you more money. You're going to get paid over all the executive team leaders in your team. So that means if you have 10 ETLs in your team, you are literally going to get a bonus when somebody qualifies anywhere in your organization. You're going to get paid a bonus over every executive team leader. So we are so excited. ACN didn't have to do what they did. Things are working incredibly well. We're in a ton of momentum right now, but this is the company you're a part of. How many of us love to wake up knowing they're going to pay your people more money? See, once you get into that mindset, if it's not about us, it's about the people you're bringing in and more opportunity for them and more things that they're going to have. So we are literally going to take 2022 by storm. I can't wait to the 29th in Dallas, Texas. And look, one of your goals should be to sit at that dinner. That dinner is a great goal. You're sitting with us on Friday night at the leadership dinner. That means you went out and did big things in the month of December and the month of January. So we're looking forward to having dinner with you. Those of you that wrote that down as a goal.